Welcome. I'm Carl Frederick, and I will be interviewing individuals for Kenosha Voices, an oral history project of the Kenosha County Historical Society in conjunction with Kenosha Community Media. I have worked in newspapers for more than 40 years as an editor and a reporter. 38 and a half of those years were at the Kenosha News. I am also a member of the Kenosha County Historical Society Board. We hope you enjoy these programs. I'm speaking with Gloria Sturino, co-owner and operator of Sturino's restaurant from 1968 until 1988, and her son Darryl. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. Tell me how you came to be in Kenosha, Gloria.
I'm a Milwaukee. I was born and raised in Milwaukee and went to school there. For my 4 years of high school, my father was a bookkeeper, for want of a better word, for Logan Trucking in Milwaukee, and they got transferred to Beloit. So we moved to Beloit for 4 years. So I went to school in Beloit for 4 high school years. And then my senior year, I decided I was going to go to some other school. So I came to Kenosha with the practical nurse program that was at, which is now City Hall. That was the technical school where practical nurses were taught.
Okay, and then you got a job?
And then I met my husband through his family. Long story short, but anyways, we got together and decided to get married. And
it can be a longer story. How actually did you meet him?
Actually, my mother-in-law was instrumental in having me meet my husband. Mm-hmm. She was a patient at the hospital, at Kenosha Hospital, and I was a student. And so we're given different patients to learn on. That sounds not nice, but you know what I'm saying. So my mother-in-law did not speak any English, so her daughter stayed with her all day to interpret what was going to happen to her, my mother-in-law. Well, she was there for several, like 10 days or something, and they found out that I lived at the nursing home with the other students, that they would like to invite me to supper, to their house. So on the appropriate appointed day, it was my husband, then I never had met him before. He came to, it was arranged, he came and picked me up at where I was.
So it was an arranged marriage? Okay.
No. Anyways, her one son was getting married and the other son was not married, and George didn't have any attachments to any girls.
He wasn't ready?
So his mother sent him over to pick me up and bring me to their house for this arranged supper. Well, my mother-in-law was Italian, right from the old country, as well as my father-in-law. So all the nursing students were anxious for me to come back from this supper to find out what we had to eat. Well, as my mother-in-law would call it, we had American dinner. We had pork chops, potatoes, green beans.
Not a lot of Italian.
I remember nothing about bread or salad or dessert. And so they did this a couple different times, and George was always the one to pick me up and escort me back to my residence. So one thing led to another, and finally we got married.
Okay.
Had 5 youngsters. My oldest boy is Dino, when we had the restaurant from I'm jumping ahead of myself, I'm sorry. We had 5 children: Dino, David, Darryl, Doreen, who has since passed away, and my youngest boy, Dwayne, who was principal at Jefferson School. Well, we lived above my in-laws for just short of 5 years. And then we had a house that was being built, so we moved to our house, and we're there for 13 years, and my kids all went to grad school on the north side. And then my husband was a barber by trade, and he had barbered in Illinois for many, many years. And then it got so our kids were getting bigger and things, so it was decided he would come to Wisconsin, to Kenosha, and barber here, so we could have more of a life, so to speak. You know what I'm trying to.
So,
Daddy was always home late.
how big was the house that you and 5 children moved into?
Not even 1,000 square feet. It was a traditional ranch house. My kids thought it was huge, but it wasn't. It was a north side house.
3 bedrooms, 1 bath.
3 bedrooms, 1 bath. But we did have, my husband had the foresight, have a shower and a toilet downstairs. Not a room, just, so we actually had 2 bathrooms.
Okay.
Came from the elite with 2 bathrooms, you know.
So, and while all this time you worked as a therapist?
I worked, then I got married, and I was short of graduating from practical nurse program, and we had our family early, so I did not go back to nursing. But after my last child, I went back, and with my history of almost a completed course in practical nurse, I was eligible for training for respiratory therapy.
Right.
So I went back to work at St. Catherine's as a respiratory therapist.
Okay, so your husband was a
Was a
barber in
barber.
Kenosha. You're working at St. Catherine's as a respiratory therapist. Did you have any other thing going while you were in the house and
I
raising?
was involved a lot with school things, PTA, Cub Scouts, and things that mothers did then, you know.
Did you have a side business?
No, but down the line, we started raising tropical fish.
What year might that have been?
Well, we came there in '68, I'd say maybe 60, beginning of the 60s, 62 or something like that.
Okay.
And we raised tropical fish. Well, the man that delivered the fish and the products to our house, we were able to kind of think of going into
A separate
a
building?
distributor.
Oh, okay.
Well, we were doing this from our residence and our house in our basement. Well, after a fashion, this is not allowed to have a going business out of your house. As a hobby, it was great, but as a business, it wasn't proper. So we were looking for a building to transfer our business slash hobby, fish, to a building. Well, we looked at several, and long story short is my husband found out that the building that it turned out to be Sturino's restaurant was for sale. The lady that had it, the daughter of the person who built it in 1936, that building was built, chose to move up to Arizona or some such thing. And the people that were in there running a business, Ken and Babe, to tell you the truth, they didn't choose to buy. So she wanted to sell, and they didn't want to buy. So, long story short is, they moved out, we moved in.
With the idea that you
With
would,
the idea that we were going to advance with the fish.
and how long did that last?
Not too long. Maybe a year. When you have a tavern or a restaurant, the liquor license for our building, because we're in Summers, if you don't keep the liquor license going, it reverts back to Summers. And if you, for example, want to open up a place, there's an available liquor license. Well, Lord have mercy, my husband should let that go. So we kept the liquor license and, filed the right papers and everything else. And we went into what was then the tavern business.
And either of you know anything about tavern business?
Absolutely nothing.
Did you find somebody to help you? How did you go about doing this?
You came forward and said, you got to do it this way. Somebody else came forward and said, George, you got to change. Somebody else came forward and said, nuh-uh, can't do it that way. Trial and error, I guess they call it nowadays.
Okay, and that seemed to
And
work
that's
out?
that's how we got into the tavern business, and Parkside was being built. And so we had, the gentleman on the corner was Center of the World Tavern. Well, they didn't have food. It was strictly a tavern per se. So these workers from Parkside came down by us, which is only a spit away from each other, and I started putting in what they now used to call blue plate specials.
Did you start with blue plate specials, or did you have something?
No, we started out with sandwiches. Hot ham and cheese, cold ham and cheese. Hot ham and cheese on rye, cold ham and cheese on rye. But
Quite the variety.
but
Choice, anyway.
Yep, absolutely.
it was a sandwich, and then chubs were very, very popular at that time. It's that smoked fish, the chubs. Well, we made friends with some fella that steamed them and cooked them and smoked them. And he'd bring them in. We leave them in the box and had paper plates over here. And everybody had a beer and a fish bowl, crackers, and one thing led to another. And before you could blink an eye, so to speak, we're in the restaurant business.
And how did it work? Or people, Parkside workers would just come on over?
They'd come over and we'd say, I'd have all the specials at the back table. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, we'll just say. They'd come over and they'd go behind the bar and get their beer, go behind the bar and get whatever, go over here and get a napkin, waited on themselves. Then I'd go after, because they only were on a little tight schedule for as far as lunch hour, so to speak. So I say, what did you have? I had this, and I had 2 beers, and I had a bag of chips. Okay, 50 cents, $1, whatever the case may be. And they were our waiters, they were our servers, they were our customers.
So this was a time when that area of Kenosha, Summers, wasn't that well developed.
No, we had a, what is it, gravel road?
Yeah, every road.
Gravel dirt road out in front. 22nd Avenue wasn't always paved.
So Parkside's coming, building kind of to the northwest of you a little bit.
Correct.
Then other building took place that
No.
brought more customers?
Lockwood Oil at that time was across the street from us. Center of the World was where Casa Capri is now. And the used car lot, Jant's used car lot, right to the south of us has always been a car lot as far as I know. And what was it called?
Jepson's.
Jepson's parking lot there. He has since, it's turned hands many, many times.
Right.
It's different, but the building and it's known always to be a used car establishment.
But Saxony Manor came about the same time or later?
Later,
Okay.
Saxony Manor was down, but we had all the way from there, Saxony Manor, to Racine.
No, nothing there.
Pardon?
There was nothing there.
No, there was nothing there.
All farm fields.
It was Ralph May had farm where Petretti now has apartments on 18th Street. Ralph May had a farm. He planted onions, I think, for the majority. although Shenanigans Liquor now on 22nd Avenue North built a little house in the back, apartment in the back, but it was, I don't know what they sold there. What did they sell there?
Art Pignati had that.
Pardon?
Wasn't Art Pignati?
Mr. Pignani had that? I
Yeah.
think you're right. Yeah, he had that, and it was, you could go in and get a cup of coffee, and I don't even know what else he had. But I know now it's a liquor store.
Because a better world was kind of a rural cafe. Would you say that?
Pardon?
For a rural cafe?
Per-
Coffee, soda, something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is 1968,
69,
1969.
7.
Okay, so how did your menu evolve from hot or cold ham and cheese? The blue plate specials came.
And then
And-
one day, then we bought a pizza oven. We still have that same pizza oven in the establishment now. My son Dino, who has since for the last 3 years, I've had renters between 88 and up until a few years ago. And different renters changed the atmosphere. One of them was strictly a bar. One of them had just a slight menu. One of them took the windows out and put different windows in. So the building, first floor, has been changed with my permission to who's ever renting from me.
Okay.
And so, but we still have the same oven. And we learned to make pizza.
Okay, so you have pizza, and you had started having pizza either late in
Yeah, in the early
68 or
70s,
early
according to the telephone
69.
book. Yeah.
Okay, so as people came to get pizza and clientele, came in, how did you go about hiring people to work
I
out?
had 5 children. Those were my employees. Darryl will attest to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, who was making pizza in the kitchen?
I
Darryl.
was a pizza guy.
So he was making pizzas,
And I'm in the kitchen.
and you're in the kitchen making sure he's making pizza. and
No, we have 2 kitchens.
okay,
We have a pizza kitchen and a cooking kitchen.
But she would check on me occasionally, you know.
okay. So then your other children,
They were waiters, waitresses.
Dino ran the bar.
Dino, my oldest boy, just fell in. He's a very good chef by trade and a mixologist, I think they call them. He just has a natural. Some people, you have to look up and no 2 drinks ever are the same. My son, my oldest boy, just is a natural at it. So we put, and because he's in the same family, he could be behind the bar
without having a bartender's license?
without having a bartender. He could be. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Now, and even my daughter was a waitress. They could go behind the bar and get a bottle of beer or what have you. Whereas a waitress now cannot do that.
You have to be 18.
I mean, if our customers would sit at the table and order 2 old fashions, we'll say. Well, Dino had to ordinarily the bartender would take them to the table because the waitress wasn't old enough, we'll say. But with Doreen being my waitress and my daughter and the same last name, Dino could give her the 2 drinks, we'll say for an example, and she could take them to the table. I don't know if it's that way anymore, but years ago, that's how it was. You were able to do that.
So was that enough employees to make a going business?
We had very good. My husband used to say, "It's not how many people you have in your restaurant; it's what. How did he used to say that? It's
The clientele.
It's the clientele. I mean, if you got 15 cars out in your parking lot, and they're just buying a beer each, 1 person for a car, we'll say, you're not making any money. you can have 4 or 5 cars out there with very prestigious people, and you've made your night.
Or having full dinners, just, dinners and appetizers and salad and beer and wine. You're better off that way than 12 people at the bar having
Just
soda.
a glass of beer. You know what I'm trying to say?
Okay, so when you moved, first of all, and you mentioned you were in the kitchen, Darryl's making pizzas, Dina's behind the bar, your daughter is a waitress. What's your husband doing?
Making sure we're making pizzas and behind the bar and good, yes.
I shouldn't say this out loud.
Go ahead.
Administrator.
Okay.
Somebody has to be the boss.
Okay.
My husband was not a drinking person. We'd share most he ever drank. We'd split, we had draft beer at the time, we'd split a small glass of beer. He knew nothing about bartending. We did have some different people at the beginning tending bar
They were
to show us the ropes, so to speak.
They knew we were new. And they said, we're going to help you. And they would come in and say, okay, this is what you do, this is what you don't do. And they'd come in on their own and say, okay, George, Gloria, that's what you need to do. And everybody was really forward at saying, they wanted us to succeed. And he said, well, we never made an old fashioned in my life. Well, this is how you do it. George, I'll show you. He'd come around and he'd make the old fashioned. Oh, that's how you do it. Or whatever. And we never knew how to do that. We were not a drinking family. And so people would come and say, Gloria, this is what you're supposed to do. Oh, okay. And would help us out so we could move forward.
And they'd come to the, and there, we had this huge bar when we came there. It's huge again now only because our previous tenants chose to make it.
To expand it.
Yeah. So my husband didn't want a big bar. So I came home from work, from from respiratory therapy one time. Our shift was from 4 to 12:30 at St. Catherine's, respiratory. I came home
This is noonish, right?
At night,
Nighttime.
at night.
Okay.
shortly after midnight.
I came home and the bar is gone. They took the bar out in the my kids and my husband tore down this bar and took this bar. So we changed the whole floor mat of our restaurant.
From a tavern that serves food to a restaurant that serves liquor.
And
She
so
comes home and the bar is literally in the parking lot.
Yeah.
We got its front door.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't believe it. So
But he had an idea. His idea was it wasn't going to be big, and so be it.
yeah. So he built in, he had, of course. My husband was not mechanically inclined.
He wasn't going to build the bar, but he had the
He
He knew
concept.
the
knew.
people that could do it, yeah.
He knew. So he built a bar that I think they call a service bar. No stools or nothing. The waitress went to the bartender and said, I need 2 old fashions or 4 beers or what have you. And then they come and get it on a tray to take to the tables. We had tables then. Oh, we had all kinds of tables and chairs. My husband said, we opened at 8 o'clock because we had a lot of white people who worked 3rd shift.
Now, this was every day of the week? Or
Every
different
day of the
working days?
week.
Okay. Could you
One-
get a good mix of people coming at 8 o'clock?
Well, it's night for them.
Well, no, I know that, but that doesn't mean everyone who works 3rd shift wants to go out to
No,
eat.
but they could come and they could get
Breakfast.
coffee, and stuff like that, or a sandwich.
But not breakfast, you didn't.
No, we didn't have breakfast.
Not at that time. But yeah, they'd come in and from McWhite or 3rd shifters and have a beer and a sandwich or something,
And then go home or whatever, next job maybe even, who knows.
So what were some of the other, I don't know, ideas that your husband had? It sounds like he was kind of the thinker behind how this developed and changed. And
Well, then he was very good. Darryl has found 2 old telephone books. He was very good on organizing an ad or a placemat or an advertisement of some sort. You know what I'm trying to? He was administrator, really, in all fairness to the man. He has since passed away.
But he would sit at
90.
the back table for hours designing ads.
Ads.
You know, let's do this, let's change that, let's do this. So he would do that for hours.
How far beyond a pizza ad did you go? Did he go? Did he imagine?
Then with another book we had the restaurant. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did the restaurant menu evolve? What else were you starting to serve?
Oh, it evolved quite well. You first started out with simple spaghetti, mostacholis, gnocchis, lasagna. Simple. I know they're not simple, but a limited selection. We
But
always had Italian chicken.
They were made
homemade.
Homemade.
Everything, and still is. Now that Dino has it, everything is homemade.
including the pasta? I
Yeah.
mean, no
Not the spaghetti per se,
Okay.
but the lasagna, the gnocchis,
And raviolis.
raviolis are all homemade. And he makes his own dough now. We did too then.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Then we evolved into fish and steaks.
that didn't last too long. Steaks.
Right.
We got a steak fryer or grill. Grill. And we only had that for a few years.
Yeah, because people came more for the Italian food than the steaks and the everything else.
You know what I'm saying? You don't go to, let's say, McDonald's or Kentucky Fried and expect to be served a steak. You don't go to a hamburger place to be served spaghetti and meatballs. So we dropped the steak
Focused
menu,
on
and we-
Italian
Yeah.
food.
and we stayed with the Italian, which we had, who came in at one time from the radio station?
Our TV station, John Coleman,
John Coleman.
WMAQ.
So we had, and we were given a good write-up. You know what I'm trying to say? In these critics that came around.
There was Herb Kubley from the Milwaukee Journal. At that time, Milwaukee Journal. Herb Kubley came in.
And so we developed, I like to think, at a very good time when people were receptive. You know what I'm trying to say? There weren't that really, pizza was just taking off. We were the first ones in Kenosha who had pan pizza. First
What
one.
did you know about making pan pizza if you kind of like learning along the way with all this?
I'm going to clue you in. Don't have to record. I'm going to clue you in. People who have taverns, restaurants, groceries. Do you ever go to the grocery store and see a lady with a clipboard and a thing? She's not from probably Piggly Wiggly. She's probably from Joe Blow's other store or something, but they're comparing.
We'd go to different restaurants and check out their pan pizza. Do you like this? Do you like that? You know. So
We went to Illinois and checked out their pan pizza. Brought it home, dissected it, you know what I'm trying to, and learned by, we were the first one. Passarelli put in, Jay Passarelli put it in after we did. He came
And how popular did that become?
very,
Right.
very.
But that was no longer something Darryl was making, was it?
Oh yeah.
So
He said,
yeah.
as long as it's in the pizza kitchen, it goes.
I'm making it. Yes.
I will admit, we made which is now, you couldn't do it, it's not profitable enough. But we made a stuffed pizza.
They're still out there.
I know, but
Maybe it's not
the
the
way
same.
we made it, it's all mozzarella cheese, and our most favorite was with spinach. That was the most popular. And you'd have dried, cooked spinach and cheese. You put it in this, like a two-crusted pie on the top. Yeah, but now you can't. You could hardly afford the cheese.
It's cost you a fortune.
The cheese would cost you. I mean, no, you could still make it, and it would still be good. But if you want the same quality that we had, you'd have to charge too much. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
So, not only, or maybe I'm wrong, and you were a restaurant, did you open up for any other kinds of events or parties? Did you like?
We had, yeah, we did a lot of fraternity parties.
A lot of fraternities.
It was very, very good.
We had, I was on the swim team at Bradford, so we had our swim banquet every year there, and that went over quite well. After the first year, there wasn't even a choice where we're going to go. They were just going to come by us. So that was good.
We had a couple of engagements there.
Yes. And my sister got married there.
My sister got married there, worked there.
And people who got engaged there or had a party there, they'd come
now
back?
Dino tells me now that we're having, he has the food, you know. Not too long ago, he said somebody came in who said they got engaged
Yep.
here.
And it was their wedding anniversary, and they came back.
They came back and they're from, I think, from Arizona. Those people were from Arizona.
Could be, yeah.
They came back from Arizona so they could have their anniversary dinner at Dino's.
Okay, tell me about some of you mentioned Herb Kublik came to the restaurant. Were any other customers you remember that were maybe a little bit more interesting, or they came from a long distance or anything like that?
There was a gentleman, his name was Andy. He came here, he was staying at the Racine Motor Inn, downtown Racine, and he wanted to go to a good Italian restaurant. So the lady said, come by us. He came, he lived in Alsip, Illinois, south of Chicago. And he'd come, I'll bet you, with his family at least once a month. Every 3-4 weeks, they'd drive from hour and a half one way, have dinner, we'd sit and chat with him, and he'd come back again. Brought his family all the time for years.
And we had Mr. and Mrs. Franceschini always be there every Friday. They ran a travel bureau.
Kenosha Travel on Roosevelt and 22nd.
And I don't know if it's for publication or not, but we always called Mr. Franceschini George. But we never called Mrs. Franceschini by her first name. She was a kind of a lady that she never said anything, but you just felt.
She was Mrs.
She was Mrs. Franceschini. Very, very nice. And they came every Friday. He drank Budweiser.
Okay.
I remember that. He used to automatically give him a Budweiser beer when he walked in. But George was George, but Mrs. Franceschini was Mrs. There are people in this world that you demand is the wrong word.
It's kind of an illicit, this kind of.
They present
This is-
themselves as being Mr. or Mrs. or Prince or Queen or Princess, however the case may be. You know what I'm trying to say.
She was proud of being Mrs., and that's
exactly.
how she preferred.
And that's how she presented herself. She was very, very nice lady. Very down to earth, very nice lady.
That's what you were saying earlier. As far as events, we had a lot of homecoming dinners from Carthage. We had a very good Carthage trade. Kids would come in on weekends, you know, when they weren't going home. When they had homecoming or prom or something, they'd come by us pretty religiously.
Any other customers from out of state or traveled differently that showed up in your parking lot?
No.
South of the border, just over the state line?
We had 2 telephone numbers.
Okay.
We had a restaurant telephone number and a house telephone number, because we lived there. We'd get a lot of pizza orders from Racine. Well, they would call our 551 number, But you couldn't call Racine with a 551 number without being charged at that time. So our home phone number was 552. So to verify this pizza, we'd get the order on the 551, call back on the 552 to make sure that
They had and they were
they
coming.
had. But we did not deliver. Everybody came and picked up their own pizza.
Back to say we had people coming in from Waukegan. Winthrop Harbor, which is not that far, but still, a fair amount of Illinois people would come.
We had a family restaurant. You were never a stranger. You know what I'm trying to say? You came once, and
You felt you belonged. You really did.
they just want to be recognized. Oh, nice of you to come. How are you today? How is your daughter feeling, or something? You know, you have to be, they're not just a number. We didn't treat people like
Just another customer.
just a, no.
They started as customers, they became friends, and then became family. I mean, we saw them for years.
Okay, now you mentioned earlier that you opened at 8 a.m. Did you do this on Sunday as well?
For a percent.
Or what?
For a percentage of time.
Okay.
We had, at that time, potato pancakes. Good German potato cake that I graded by myself. We served German potato. In fact, we had some plaques made, and I don't know what's become of them, but it showed a pancake with a glass of beer. It's strictly a German thing. Well, we did and that was only from 8 to 12. And then we closed. Then after we dropped the potato pancakes, after a couple, 3 years or so, we stayed closed until like in the late afternoon before we opened. We weren't open during the day anymore, except during the weekday, you know.
For the McWhite.
Right.
Well, on Sunday, and you said the German the potato pancakes went over very well.
They did.
And you served them with beer and you served them with applesauce.
Well, it's funny you should mention. We had a gentleman, Mr. Rutchick.
Johnny Rutchick.
I always called him Mr. Rutchick. And was he Russian perhaps?
I think so.
I think so. He came in routinely every Sunday, sat at a side table by himself, and he ordered potato pancakes. Well, the first time, the side table was close to the kitchen, so I just brought it out to him so it'd be nice and hot, you know what I'm saying? Where's the sour cream? I, as a child, had never had my mother, when she made potato pancakes, never served sour cream, always applesauce. And I said, what do you want the sour cream for? Well, you don't eat potato pancakes without sour cream. I said, Mr. Rutchick, you eat it today just like I served, and I guarantee you, next week when you come, you will have sour cream. Okay. Next week he came, and we had little bowls, like cups, pretty little cups, and I brought sour cream out, and he was ecstatic. So we treated our people like they belonged to us. You know what I'm trying to say?
You want it, we made sure you have it.
And he stayed right with you most of that time, if not
All the
all the
time.
time, until
All
you
the
just dropped him.
Till we closed.
And you closed on Sunday and he couldn't come anymore.
No, but I mean till we
Right.
ourselves closed the
Right.
restaurant, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you closed the restaurant in 1988.
88.
Okay.
My husband wasn't feeling the best.
Okay.
We tried to live in Florida for a little while, and it wasn't to his liking. So we came back to Kenosha, and we start renting it out.
Okay.
And our first tenants was Kelly Cavelli. He had a used car lot over where the school buses are now, where the school buses park way over there. Well, then it got too much for him to run two businesses, and they called it Julie's after his mother. Well, then his brother Bernie took over because it was too much for Kelly, and he was responsible for building the deck that's on a building as we speak. And then he got sick, and so we started renting it out to other. One man stayed just a year or two, another one stayed. Our last tenant was Diane Anderson. She has since passed away now. She was there for 10 years. And approximately 3 years ago or so, her lease was up in November. And she said to me in July, or summer months, that I don't think I'm going to be able to renew my lease. Her husband wasn't feeling well. He had heart problems. Her mother had just been put into a nursing home, I think, something to that effect. Well, her love and divided time was divided too many ways for her to. So my son Dino got a hold of the news that Diane was moving.
What was he doing at the time?
He was in Waukesha working for another restaurant.
Okay.
Wauwatosa? Waukesha?
Waukesha.
Waukesha. Anyhow, he said, Mother, would you like to rent to me?
Okay.
Well, even now, what would I going to do with an empty building? I had nobody. Somebody's got to pay the. My rent is my retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a source, like if I worked 20 years in a factory or something, you know. The self-employment is everything is cracked up to be, I tell you.
Well, you pay
Huh?
the Medicare taxes and the Social Security taxes.
I hear you, yeah. But so Dino came in, did a little of this and a little of that, and changed it to his liking, and made a way different menus. Got very exotic things on his menu. What does he have, Darryl? That chicken thing that's so popular.
Oh, chicken marsala.
Chicken marsala. So I just had spaghetti and meatballs, mostaccioli and sausage, lasagna. I did make good lasagna. He makes excellent lasagna, by the way. And we had our gift to our customers when we had it as a restaurant. At the end of every meal, we had a pedestal, stainless steel, chrome, little plate, for want of a better word, and we put fruit on it.
Fresh fruit.
Fresh fruit. Watermelon, cantaloupe, cherries. And then in the winter, when it wasn't available, we'd have apples and oranges or bananas or so, what have you. And then I'd have Jeanette cookies. Those are Italian little wedding cookies. I'd put those on. And that's how we complimented their meal with that.
It was
Dino
kind
does-
of dessert.
That was a dessert, yeah. But it wasn't figured in. It was just our
was an
way of
extra
saying
thing.
thank you, know, to our customer. Dino doesn't do that. But he's got a very extended, very good menu.
So he's been trained as a chef?
In the Navy, he was a chef.
Okay.
He was one of the gentlemen that just came back from the honor flight a week or two
Okay.
ago.
He worked for the Playboy Mansion in Chicago
Okay.
for at least 2 or 3 years. So he's been around.
He loves to cook. He's not a cook, he's a chef.
There is a difference.
There's a difference.
So you look back on that restaurant?
I think that's
a
about
good
it.
time? A
Pardon?
good time, that
Very good time.
restaurant?
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
years?
Okay.
I'm not sorry. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to keep up more, but it was a good life. We made a lot of friends, which I don't think I would have made ordinarily, and it was good. The children got good learning experience to go out into the world, not thinking everybody owes them a living, you know what I'm trying to say. They know how to work. Darryl has his funeral home in Racine, and my son David, unfortunately, has MS and he lives in El Paso. so he does not work. And my daughter since passed away, and she married a Navy man, 20-year career Navy fella. We even got him to come in and make pizzas for while they were married and lived in Kenosha. Oh yeah.
One thing about the restaurant business, you learn good people skills. You know, you're good to your people, they're going to be good to you, you're going to repeat customers. If you treat them well, it's going to come back.
And today, the Sturino's name is still on the restaurant.
Yes, sir.
Dino put it reestablished.
There you go.
That's what I think
Good
he's
word,
got that down on his
Reestablished, yeah.
reestablished. Yeah. We have in the front of the building a stone. It's not a monument stone, but it's a stone that we had put in from a bricklayer who did brickwork for that building when we first came there, and he put that in the
Like
front
a
of it.
cornerstone or just a-
cornerstone, yeah.
Okay.
November
19
1st, 1968, we moved in.
So it's been a good experience. How many times people would say to you, if you had to do it all over again, would you do? I said, well, if I had to do it all over again, I would like to think that I would take what I've learned and put it back into here. It would be a much different picture, you know what I'm trying to say? But no, I'm glad
Good
I
time.
missed my house for a long time. I just missed being a house lady, you know what I'm trying to. But all the kids, my son went to be a teacher. Darryl's a funeral director. Dino now has this business. And he had a business in Waukesha, a landscaping business. So he's always been working as such, you know what I'm trying to say? But when he found out we were going to be without a tenant,
That changed everything.
everybody's picture changed.
And people still come back. I remember this when your mom and dad ran it. It was so much fun, you know. So, yeah.
But it was so much fun. But were you open late on holidays? Did you?
On New Year's Eve, we were closed at 10 o'clock.
Why was that?
My husband had this real fetish thing. You're going to go to a party at your neighbor's. You're going to drink and whatever you're going to do, have fun. And then you're going to leave there. Don't think you're coming over here at 11:30 and suck up beer or whatever when you're half crazy already. So we opened up like, say, 3:30, 4 o'clock. Everybody came like till 9, 10.
For dinner? Yep.
For dinner. Where they went after that, I could care less. But we didn't have any drinking trade. No mischief. We avoided. My husband's famous saying when the kids started dating and going out, you have to be home at this time before 12. Nothing good ever happens after 12 o'clock. That was his philosophy for making the kids come home. And nothing good. And if you read in the paper, nothing good ever comes.
Not after midnight.
It's
no.
2:30, somebody is getting hurt or speeding or stopped or, God forbid, killed. So I guess you might say this is what
ahead.
Daddy would say. He's ahead of his time.
Yep, ahead of his
That's
time.
all. He always used to say that. I'm just ahead of my time. But it's good. So we never ever, and I say this with a clear conscience, we never had to call the police.
Never.
Even when we were just a bar, and even when we had people hanging around on the deck, we never had to call the policeman. Never, ever. And I take that with the attitude that we presented. No monkey shines. You're here, you eat, you can stay as long as you want, but don't think that you're going to give me any grief.
And most people, I don't ever remember having to cut somebody off. So, okay, you've had enough, you're done. People, like I said, it was more family. So you bring your wife and your children or your friends, and they never I don't ever remember anybody oh, we better call a cab or whatever. Everybody was responsible, and they were self-contained, and they enjoyed coming in. We enjoyed them leaving, and everybody left with good memories. And it's not like, oh, I remember he overdrank there or overdid. And it was always...
When we had the fraternity parties,
Yeah.
we used to close to the public, the fraternity party. There was one fellow named Joe. We make it nice for them. We give them prizes and a little, let's say a portable radio. Well, if you did something right and there was a number underneath it. So it was like my own kids. They were all like my...
Oh, yeah.
And then about 10 o'clock, they'd come earlier and he'd say, Mrs., of course we'd be closed to, he said, Mrs. Sturino, are you getting tired? I says, yeah, I'm getting a little tired. He'd stand up on a chair, he said, Mrs. Sturino's tired, she wants to go to bed, let's go home.
5 minutes, gone.
And
I've already did this.
and he opened up a
He
restaurant.
made it happen, yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, he opened a restaurant too.
He opened a restaurant up north somewhere,
Was that more?
like a Swiss,
Oh, up in Wausau.
Wausau. But, and we kept contact with a lot of the people who would come back and say, do you remember whatever? So it's a growing family. I didn't have 5 kids, I probably had 500. You know
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say? We
Always Mrs. Sturino too.
always Mrs. Sturino. My son did that, who's a teacher. I know I'm getting off the subject a little bit, but his name is Dwayne Sturino. Well, he worked after he got out of high school for different companies, Aldi's and everything else. Well, then he decided he was going to come back to Kenosha, and he was going to go to school, and he was going to be a teacher. So his first assignment, went to the school, and he said, I wish to be called Mr. Sturino, no hey you, no hey, what, he went through a whole bunch of different scenarios. And I expect this, and I expect that, and he rattled off a whole bunch of rules and regulations. We'll be best of friends, but blah, 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 blah. Anybody who doesn't want to abide by those rules, go to the principal's office, and you can have your classroom changed. That was in grade school. Nobody laughed. One little boy raised his hand. He said, because Dwayne had told him he's such and such an age, and my son is a tall gentleman, and a loud voice. And he said, Mr. Sturino, how come you're so old to be the first year of teaching? So he had a good rapport with the kids right off the bat, and I think he got that from working at the restaurant.
And what did he tell him? What was his answer?
I don't remember.
His answer
Oh yeah, something. You tell me exactly.
was something to the effect of, when I was younger, I thought I knew everything, and I was so smart, and I realized I wasn't.
So I had to go back to school.
To relearn. I said, oh, okay.
So that's how our family is, whether it be a school teacher or a restaurant person, or when I volunteer at the History Museum, I treat these people with respect, but yet they're not above me, or I'm not above them. You know, that. And I think we all, as a family, learned that just by having. So if we didn't make any money, I mean, we're not rich and famous, but at the same time, I'd like to think that just partaking of this in our lifetime enhanced all of my children, as myself, to be a better person. You know what I'm trying to say? The other guy does know something. I don't know everything. You know what I'm trying to say? And I think that's important. You learn to work with somebody. You know, brothers and sisters and parents don't always get along. And I think after 20 years of staying connected speaks a lot as far as personalities and peoples, because so often you hear, well, I didn't go in the family business because I couldn't get along with my brother or what have you.
So it's that 20 years in the restaurant business, working side by side with siblings
Yeah.
and family.
Shoulder to
that
shoulder, yeah.
made
You're not
a better
above.
personality, better
Yep.
person because of all of that.
You're not above this kid. You're the oldest, but you're not above him. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
So my husband had cut, and everybody took a turn cutting the grass. And we have a big lot there, not just what the parking lot shows. But when we first came there, like I said, 26, our address wasn't even 1543. Then, back when we got there, it was
1343.
1343.
It was 1345, and then it was 1513.
And then turned, the Summers changed it to 15. It hasn't always been 1543. And I think they did that when, because Birch Road used, which is just a few feet further north than our place, Birch Road used to extend all the way over to 30th Avenue. And then they built those complexes in there and Piggly Wiggly in there. And that, I think, is 12th. And only Birch Road goes from 22nd east.
Right, and then it becomes 14th place from 22nd to 30th. And then it crosses 30th, it becomes 15th Street.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the first turn to the right at 32nd Avenue, you make a bend, and it's 14th place there.
See what I'm saying?
Exactly.
That's
Very-
because of, I think, Parkside, a contributing factor, and those condos when Thompson's Apple moved out. You know, there's a couple houses right on 30th Avenue that was transported from the houses that were where Parkside now says. Those two houses, they were moved. All the rest were leveled off when Parkside bought that property. And then, but progress. That's what you call progress.
All right, thank you so much for talking with me today.
Well, thanks
I'm
for your
sorry.
time.
I'm sorry if I was repetitious, but
Not at all.